Let's talk about Black Manta and the premise to my second Aquaman movie in my DC cinematic universe. David Hyde was a marine biologist, a deep-sea diver, and, for a hobby, a treasure hunter, and he grew up obsessed with the mythology of Atlantis. After all, if the Justice Society of America can have an alien, a god, and a wizard on their team, how is an Atlantean an unbelievable thing to exist in this world? After years of dives, his expedition would come to fruition and he would meet Lucia, a native of the kingdom of Zebel. The two would fall in love and have a whirlwind romance. She had been growing disillusioned with how xenophobic Atlantis had been becoming, and he couldn't turn up this opportunity to learn everything about this kingdom that he could, so he invited her to stay with him on the surface. The two fell in love and had a child together, but unfortunately, they were found out by the natives of Zebel. A group of guards were sent to collect them. David tried fighting back, but he was unsuccessful. He was stabbed through the gut by one of the Atlantean guards and left to bleed out on the docks as the love of his life and their newborn son were taken from him. But he didn't die. He eventually healed, got all of his stuff together, and he dove back down to the kingdom of Zebel, only to find that his wife and his son were dead. He knew he was no match for Atlanteans. They were all thousands of times stronger, so David decided that he had to become better. This tragedy fueled him to create the technology necessary to wreak havoc upon the entire kingdom of Atlantis and take from them what they had taken from him. That's right, in my universe, Black Manta is the evil version of Thomas Curry. Manta builds a criminal empire, amassing more and more power over the years after the murder of his wife and son. And then after Atlantis publicly exposes itself to the surface world, and Orm floods New York City, and then again he floods Central City under the disguise of Aquaman, the United States are terrified of the existence of Atlantis. They're not really sure what they can do, and David uses that to his advantage. You see, he's a marine biologist and a deep-sea diver working for contract for the United States Navy. While working for them, he proposes the idea of creating a chemical weapon for warfare that could temporarily disable Atlanteans' ability to breathe underwater, and they would be forced to surface, where his research shows that if too much time is spent out of the water, they grow significantly weaker. And so while his public persona, David Hyde, works on that for the United States military, his Black Manta persona goes into overtime trying to frame Atlantis for more crimes. Manta has a platoon of his men hijack a United States nuclear submarine. Now, he makes a very public show of this thing because he knows Aquaman will come and stop it. Unfortunately for Aquaman, this guy steals all of the nukes and replaces them with dummies before Aquaman even gets there. So Aquaman still thwarts an attempt to steal a nuclear submarine, but when the military recovers it, all they have are a group of unsuccessful thieves, dummy nukes, and an Aquaman nowhere to be seen. They believe that Atlantis is stealing nukes from them. Now, while that storyline is going on, that is also when we cover the Calderon storyline that I covered yesterday. And it all comes to a head when the United States Navy sends out a fleet of battleships to float directly above the capital city of Poseidonis. The Navy and Aquaman are talking things out, trying to de-escalate the situation from both sides. But then Manta fires an Atlantean weapon at one of the ships, making it look like Atlantis fired at the Navy, and a full-blown war starts. Manta scuttles back up to the ship, takes off his Manta outfit, puts back on his David Hyde clothes, and rushes to his lab just in time for the general to arrive and order him to fire the bioweapon. And so they do, only this bioweapon isn't a temporary solution to stop Atlanteans from breathing water. It is a violent chemical weapon that deteriorates Atlantean DNA. It's fired and the Atlanteans start dying en masse. And as Manta is reveling in this victory, that's when he is contacted by Calderon. Calderon hanging out with Arthur so much, and Arthur reducing the stigma of being half human, eventually led Calderon's parents to admit that they weren't his parents. They were his aunt and his uncle, and tell him the true story of what happened to him. And that's when he learned that his father was a man named David Hyde. And that man was serving aboard one of these ships attacking Atlantis at this moment. It's this confrontation that sends this guy into a spiral. Everything he had come to hate, he had truly trained himself to despise Atlanteans. And now his son walks up to him. The child he thought dead, alive and well, raised by Atlantis, had become a great man and has the eyes of his mother. Manta loses his mind. He had spent decades consumed by hatred, but this entire time, his brother-in-law that he didn't even know existed was a decent person who took this boy in and raised him as his own. The Atlanteans weren't horrible. Yes, they were horrible for what they did to his wife, and they were horrible bigots for their beliefs then, but he can't judge all of Atlantis by the beliefs of one group of them at one time. And suddenly the very real reality that he is starting a genocide against a group of people that his son calls family breaks this guy. Now, he isn't an idiot. He had an antidote formulated for this entire thing just in case they needed to torture a prisoner or something. So using that little bit of antidote that he had and his son's aquakinesis, Calderon mass disperses the antidote to all surviving Atlanteans. David Hyde is arrested and tried for his crimes, and the Kingdom of Atlantis seriously considers maybe they should join the UN. And even though Black Manta goes to prison for a very, very long time, he extends the possibility of visitation from his son. That's right, in my universe, Black Manta is an okay dad. Not a great, can't stress this part enough, not a great one, but an okay one.